Coming up next on This Week in Radio Tech, Rolf Taylor is here. Maybe you know Rolf from his days of tech support at Telos. Almost everybody in the broadcast industry talked to Rolf at one time or another, and he's going to be here talking about how to design products better, how to do tech support better, and plus we'll have some Festivus, some grievances. It's all coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionics Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nautel, worry-free transmission you can count on with outstanding control, reliability, efficiencies, and Nautel's unmatched 24/7 customer support. Online at nautel.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone, like this one right here, to the light bulb at the top of the tower, like that one behind me. So proud of it. Thank you, Charles Kinney. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host here in the Telos Alliance studio. Can you tell? Got the marking right here, Telos Alliance, got the sign back there. And I really do appreciate my bosses, my friends at the Telos Alliance who give me some time on Thursdays to put a show together, bring it to you, and have a little fun. So I really appreciate what a great employer Telos Alliance has been. And today, sadly, Chris Tarr will not be with us. He's feeling a little under the weather. Pretty sure it's not COVID, but pretty sure it's something that's keeping him under the weather. So he will not be with us. Maybe he'll be with us on our first show of the new year. Next Thursday, we're going to be doing one of those live remote broadcast things. We're going to be doing, or an outside broadcast, as they call it in the rest of the world. Next week, we're going to be at a very exciting AM radio station in Elkton, Kentucky, where they have a brand new studio featuring Telos Alliance gear, but also they have an affiliation with the local high school, and they bring students in to get them interested in broadcasting, anything from engineering to operations, production, and of course being on the air. So that'll be next week. We're going to go revisit my good friend, Beth Mann, who is one of the owners of that group of stations up there. All right, so enough about that. That's next week. But this week, I am so delighted to bring to the airwaves, to this podcasting, a friend of mine. I've known him for 20 plus years. Yeah, because I met him on the phone. Wow, probably calling support. And that would be Rolf Taylor. You know him, you love him. Rolf, welcome in. It's good to see you, man.
Hey, good to be on the show. And I'm glad to see I don't watch every week or anything, but I do tune in to the replays. Glad to see you got your Duro meter fixed there, Kirk.
Yeah, well, that's thanks to Mark Persons. Mark Persons fixed that for me, and he said it was actually kind of tough. And if Mark Persons says it was tough, I don't think I could have done it. No way. He said no schematic is available for this particular run of Duro meters. I know it looks like lots of others, but it's not. it's different. Rolf, let's give a quick little. Well, let's see. You and I were talking. We've talked a few times since you have been away from Telos Alliance, and that's been a few years. You've had a few interesting technical positions, and just a couple 3 months ago, I was in Washington, D.C., and you said, and I posted about that on Facebook, and I was there for the IEEE Broadcast Technical Symposium, and you said, hey, Kirk, why don't we get together? And I said, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm flying right back out of here, but let's get together on the podcasting airwaves, so to speak. And so here we are. So it's great to see you. Give us a little thumbnail. What's the elevator speech on what Rolf Taylor is doing these days?
Well, these days I'm working as a contractor for FEMA, not just IPAWS, but smaller than that, the NPWS, which is the PEP station network. And I work for a big government contractor, and we do the maintenance of all the PEP equipment at the PEP sites for the national EAS system. So that involves everything from generators, large fuel tanks, to a lot of phone lines and telephone hybrids and things like that. I'm a junior engineer, so I don't always get to travel, but frequently I get to travel as a number two We go to these sites all around the U.S. I haven't been to any of them outside the U.S., but 90% of the U.S. in population is what our mandate is. So that does include Guam and American Samoa and some other spots around the country, but I don't get to leave the country.
Okay. Well, maybe someday you will. I'll take you. I'll meet you in American Samoa, and we can go get a Mai Tai together on the beach. And I think this is fabulously interesting. We're going to get into some of the challenges that you come across, and the fact that you help take care of or make sure it's working. The extra gear that PEP stations have. I'm just a few miles from the WSM transmitter site here. It's actually in Brentwood, Tennessee, and I'm just probably 6 miles as the crow flies from that tower site, where they have some interesting gear that I guess a lot of PEP stations have, and maybe a couple extra things. And then one of my radio stations in American Samoa, WVUV, is the PEP station for American Samoa. So, there's a satellite dish there. There's 2 phone lines. There's some optolators to keep everything protected, and it's a pretty and a generator, a big honking generator that runs everything at one of the transmitter sites. So we're going to be talking about that. Plus, Rolf has we started talking about a really interesting topic, and we're going to share that with you, our audience, Rolf, and that. Well, why don't you tell them about this? This is, the best support is no need for it. What does that mean to you?
Well, I was in support starting out at Telos, although I had sort of other customer-facing jobs before that. And then I got involved in updating manuals, and the goal was to make it that if you read the manual, you might not have to call support. And then I worked my way up to be a product manager for all the telephony stuff, the codecs being the most complicated part of that, and the ones that needed as much proactive support. So there I started looking at how can we design the user interface and all that, again, to reduce support and increase usability. Telos had a culture of that, so I was sort of joining in on something that was already underway. But and I learned that really does make a difference, and thus began a sort of a lifetime interest in. Wow, why does that work like that? Wouldn't it be better if there were some, not even a line of code, just do it a little differently? And so all my friends know I'm always commenting on stuff. And my ex says, now I do it too. I look at that and I say, well, that's stupid. Why didn't they do it some other way?
Well, you have some pretty interesting pictures and graphs and a couple outlines to share. We're going to get into that as we get into the show. Right now, I want to thank the sponsor and remind you that Nautel is one of our sponsors here. And Nautel has done something that, along the lines of what Rolf Taylor's talking about, they've made HD radio implementation really easy, just terrifically easy. In fact, so easy that Kirk Harnack, I did it myself at WBZK in Oxford, Mississippi, not long ago, just a few months ago. They have a new series of transmitters. Now, this is not what I had. We got the FMHD Exciter and coupled that with literally a 10-year-old VS 2.5 transmitter. But they have this new series of transmitters, the GV2. They're an enhanced version of their GV series, and they're the first in the industry to integrate all HD radio components inside the transmitter. So the GV2 supports HD radio with Xperi Gen 4 importer, exporter, XGen implementations for HD radio encoding, station logo, and artist experience, and they're the first solution that locks FM and HD signals synchronously to eliminate HD-FM blend drifting. Wow. You can also get an Omnia for Nautel. It covers all FM and HD radio audio processing needs and provides live wire audio over IP inputs for all audio streams. No additional hardware is needed. That's cool. Because I'm telling you, for years now, implementing HD has been, let's just say, a little bit complicated. Little wires here and there, cables back and forth, feedback into this and that. And, it's if you know what you're doing, it does become straightforward. If it's your first time, it's like, wow. Well, That's what Nautel has solved with the GV2 series. So if you're planning on going HD, or if you want to improve your HD to where things are locked together and it's just better, or maybe you want to improve your audio processing and it's time for a new transmitter. Get both together at the same time with the Nautel GV2. I really thank Nautel for being such a great friend to our industry, for making things easier for us as engineers, and for engineering great products. Check it out at the Nautel.com website, Nautel.com. And this is under HD radio. This is the GV2 series of transmitters with full HD radio implementations. Thanks a lot, Nautel, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack in the Telos Alliance studio. Rolf Taylor is along with me. And Rolf, we've got quite a few things to cover on today's show. You provided a PDF document that I think it probably Suncast has ready. I'm not sure where you want to start. If you want to start with the first page, we can just talk about it, as we go along. You put some thought into this, I believe. You want to jump in there, Mr. Professor?
Yeah, well, that's just a quick summary. We covered some of this, but sort of where I'm coming from, which to me, radio is just an extension of an audio system. That's how I got into it. I was, I love the whole RF idea, but it's the audio that matters to me. So, and I've been a lifelong tinkerer of radio and audio stuff. We've already covered what I'm doing now, and I was a technical director for a college station several times, and got them in on the beta program for some of the Telos Axia gear, which was pretty cool, and kept them state of the art that way. And of course, I was a support engineer at Telos, worked my way up, and was eventually product manager, which is very relevant to this topic. I've always been a bit of a wizard with telephone stuff. Always had an interest in that, and then taught myself a lot about ISDN and BRI and PRI and all that. Again, I'm a critic and a curmudgeon. That's hopefully constructive critic.
I got to say, Rolf, you call yourself a critic and you put the word constructive in front of that. I have never thought of you as a negative critic. The things that you have comments about, you typically have a positive, constructive angle on that. Here's how this could be better. Here's how it could be more foolproof. Here's how we could make it simpler for the user and make it kind of, just work. It just works. And that's kind of where your constructive criticism comes from, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it very much, again, coming up through support, being an advocate for the customer has definitely been something. As you know, I can be fairly forceful in meetings, perhaps a bit too much, but it's always for the right reasons, I think. So, but as I've gotten older, I think I've got a little more curmudgeonly. So when I'm talking about somebody else's products that I don't have any input, well, here's my chance to maybe spread some of that to others.
I must say, and being a writer, and you wrote some great manuals for Telos, and they were extraordinarily complete. Rolf, they were so complete. Here's my my comment. It's not even a criticism. Some of your manuals were like this thick, and so I couldn't deal with the printed version. I had to have the PDF version and just search for the thing I was looking for. That's what I had to do, because they're very complete. Let's look at the satisfaction cycle. You provided me a diagram, and Suncast can pop it up here. The satisfaction cycle. What does this mean? What's this about?
All right. Well, we'll start at the top. Obviously, obviously not everything's hardware, but if it is hardware, the hardware's got to have some base level of stability and reliability. It's also got to have some capabilities. I'm got details on all these later, so I'll try to just give the user interface is critical, because if that's not right, then the user's going to experience pain. And then as part of the user interface, online help can be extremely valuable. It's right there, whether it be on the screen or on a hardware device that has a screen. It's not always helpful, but it's really good to have. And in a pinch, If you can't download the documentation, it just might have what you need. Documentation, we could do a whole show on documentation, but good documentation is helpful. If for nothing else, your support people are going to have it, and some users will read it, some won't, and some will just skip to the good parts by using the search feature, which is one of the great things that PDFs add to the.
Yeah.
Figuring out how to do index and everything is something I figured out because I wanted to have an index, old school, but it had never been done on any of the Telos manuals. But I was writing a big one and figured out how to do it. Then sort of the other side of documentations is on your website, or as part of the documentation, FAQs can be very handy. A well-written FAQ that's easy to access. Again, we'll get to little details there, but can be very valuable. And then once it comes down to customer needs support, you got to have at least a couple options, and they need to be effective. We'll get onto that later, but and you really do need to plan for some sort of escalation. Because sometimes, whether it's because things aren't going well or the customer's jumping the gun and maybe a little bit of curmudgeon, shall we say, maybe they're not going to go through the usual channels. But there's ways to address that. You shouldn't lock out escalation as a fairly easy thing to do just because of those people. And then turning around to the other side, if you do all this right, you're going to have satisfied customers. You're going to get word of mouth. It's best advertising there is. It's free, and people believe it. And then marketing goes hand in hand. If it's good marketing, it's not just a bunch of BS. It's actually saying, well, here's what our customers think. Here's what's unique about the product. This is where it's good. And then you take that right into, particularly in the broadcast industry, but to the extent that you can train your sales staff, both in-house and out-of-house, and also give them the context. I did a lot of training for folks at the different broadcast vendors, and some of those people I still have a great relationship with, and they knew if they couldn't remember the answer or they didn't have the answer, they'd turn right around and call me up and conference me in, and we'd make sure the customers' questions were answered rather than waiting until afterwards. And then part of that is you may be able to give them checklists. If it's a big board, pre-configuration, maybe that's done on the website. But again, that's part of the pre-sales. Last thing you want to do is find out, oh, geez, you mean there was a module to do that and I didn't order it? Now I got to order it and get it, maybe reconfigure. That's when I started thinking about this topic, I had, you brought it up and I started thinking, well, how do I frame this? So that was sort of where I started. And then that gave me the rest of the bullet points for today's talk. And I think there's quite a bit there. So we'll see what we can cover.
One of the interesting things about, let's say, a quick start guide or a manual, but I personally really like quick start guides. There's a lot of things in a manual that I don't think I need to know right now. And unfortunately, maybe I do. And I'll just tell you a procedure that I went through. It seemed to work for me. Maybe you have a criticism or a better idea. But years ago, when the Telos Zip 1, like this one behind me here, when it came out, I was asked to write up a quick start guide to help people just plug it in and get going. And we had kind of a setup procedure built into it. And so I went through that and I tried to erase from my brain any pre-knowledge of how the thing worked. I tried to pretend that I was an inexperienced user, and what would I screw up? What would I need to know to properly answer the next question or fill in the next blank on the screen? And I don't know. I felt like I was kind of good at that. I could act stupid and just follow along with what it said with really basic information. So I did that. I wrote a quick start, and then what I did was when I was my ex-wife, her daughter lived here, and she didn't know nothing about this stuff. I think she might have been 14 years old, and I brought her. I said, Madeline, here, and I put the thing back to factory. and I gave her the quick start, and I said, "Would you please follow this and see if it works for you?" And I kind of watched over her shoulder without making her nervous, and I watched her, and in 4 minutes, she had called the test line, and it worked. And I thought, okay, maybe I've done a decent job writing the quick start. Now, with that story behind us, and I'm a little bit proud of that. What do you think that a quick start should do for people? Something like that, or something maybe a little more different?
Well, it's funny that you should mention that, Kurt, because I also wrote a quick start for that product. I was
Yeah.
sort of asked if
Okay.
I could help out, and I sort of went to the extreme of trying to make it relatively non-language. So I used mostly pictures and arrows.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I don't know if that ever floated by you, probably not. But um, I never really got feedback. I was too busy, and I finally said I'm not going to be able to. I sent that, and I said I'm going to decline on writing the manual. I had written a little bit of stuff for it, and actually, this was for the yeah, I think it's the same product. Um, but I think that's exactly what a quick start should do. It should also possibly have some cross references. For more on
Hmm.
this topic, see chapter 1.2. Since you are making assumptions on the quick start, I know on my quick start for that codec, I assumed you're using a microphone, not a line level, because that's something you might have and you can plug it right in. Don't have to worry about um, but as soon as are going to use something else, or as soon as you get into using LiveWire, obviously you
Yeah.
need to know where to turn. But it should be something. Sort of the gold standard for that is, as you know, the original Zephyr and its subsequent brethren were extremely popular among the voiceover industry, and there's all sorts of people in the voiceover industry. They all have, for the most part, have good voices. But some of them, I think, their parents may have said, Johnny, you've got a really good voice. I think you might want to do this because I'm not so sure that you could do complicated things. And as a value added, one of the things I didn't support is if you bought an expensive codec, uh, even if you whether you read the quick start or not, I'd help you get it hooked up to your little Mackie mixer and give you some
Hmm.
ideas how to set up the mix minus and everything. And obviously that goes beyond what you can do in a quick start. But the quick start hopefully is good enough those guys can plug it in and make sure it's working. And certainly warnings, you mentioned something to that effect. With ISDN, it was always, I remember telling Neil Glassman, he wrote the previous, and I proofread it, and I said, realtors say location, location, location. For ISDN, it's get the spids, get the spids.
Yeah, I remember that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and and just real quick before we take a break, what's it like, Rolf, to be old enough, you and I both, to have lived through pretty much an entire technology, ISDN, from almost its beginning? I mean, I got involved a little after its beginning, but now we've seen it pretty well sunset, at least B channels. What's your comment or thought on living through a technology from end to end?
Well, it's just odd and just a little bit scary, perhaps. It certainly reminds us that we're not spring chickens anymore.
Yeah, we're not spraying, and it's amazing what technologies have like 8-track tapes. Those went away, when I was probably in my late teens or early 20s. Cassette tapes, those came out when I was a little kid, and now they're pretty well gone. Although there's some nostalgia here and there. What else? Vinyl is making a bit of a resurgence, but again, as a
Yeah.
retro technology. POTS is still around. It's kind of fading, but in your full-time job, you certainly use POTS a lot as a secure, a fairly secure way of connecting to transmitter sites.
Yeah,
Oh,
indeed. And it's interesting. CDs are on the decline, but they're prepared to have a second rising because they're cost effective and they really do what they claim to. And if you don't want to have it downloaded,
Yeah.
they're going to be much more successful second version than the vinyl, I think. Don't have any
And
dislike for vinyl, but
I
um,
I swear this, a lot of people have been burned by downloads of course you don't own the music. That's the copyright holders. But if you download something, it's kind of like you don't own the download either, because or with the online services, I swear I had 7,000 songs uploaded into iTunes when they let you do that. And if you had a crappy copy, they'd replace it with a good copy, and you paid them every year to do that. And I don't know what I did wrong, but they're all gone. Yeah, everything I paid for is no longer there, and yeah, I wasn't real happy about that. But all the CDs that I got from all the radio stations I ever worked at, I still got those. So it's like,
yeah, they're in the
I
attic.
got 'em.
They've all been ripped, but they're in the attic. And if
That's
the
right.
copyright police come around, they're coming out of the attic.
That's right. Hey, we're talking to Rolf Taylor, and we got more to get into, including, don't miss it, the Festivus portion of our show, where Rolf and I are probably going to, bitch and moan about a couple things. But yeah, we're going to air a few grievances. Our show is brought to you in part by Broadcast Bionics, and a technology that we've seen come, and I think it'll be a long time before we see it go, and that is virtualization of broadcast functionality. Now, the traditional way of doing that is with Docker containers and setting those up. And I got to tell you, it ain't child's play, especially when you are using real-time audio streams, things that must be processed, boom, 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 on time, or else you're going to get some dead air or bad audio. Well, the folks at Broadcast Bionics have figured this out for you and me to make it really easy to implement Docker broadcast container technology into an appliance that you don't have to know what's going on behind the scenes. And that is the virtual rack from Broadcast Bionics. If you go to bionics.co.uk and look for virtual rack, you can find this. What it is, it's an appliance, and it comes in a couple different sizes, and it's almost like an app store. You browse into it, you see the app store, you pick out the functions, the broadcast functions that you want from different manufacturers. Most of them are from Telos, but there's also things in there, applications from Sound 4 and from 2WCOM. And I'm sure that more are coming as other broadcast equipment manufacturers jump online and into the virtualized world. So if you want an audio console from Telos Alliance, from Axia, you click on the Altus audio console, and literally you click on it while you're online. It downloads the image, it installs it, it asks you a few questions about your IP address that you want, if you want two network interfaces or one network interface, and you give it a few names so that you can, come back and refer to it, and it installs. Now, what it doesn't do for you is put the license in, of course. The Broadcast Bionics is not selling you the final software. They're giving you an appliance to install it on automatically. And then you take care separately of licensing that product. Now, some products give you a demo mode. Some of the Telos products, for example, give you a demo mode, and there's some functionality there, so you can test it out. But then you license it, like for the Axia Altus, you license the basic functionality or groups of 4 more faders or 4 more faders. You can license the web RTC functionality, so you can do remote broadcasts with it and that kind of thing. So many cool things are built in. You can watch a couple videos about this. It's showing on your screen right now at the bottom of the screen. If you go to Broadcast Bionics' website, Dan McQuillan explains about how this works and what functionalities are available to you in terms of deployment and failover and the applications that are available. I got a good demo of this, actually several of them, and Dan was on our show this past summer. So if you want to go back and find Dan McQuillan with Virtual Rack on TWiRT, you can see a whole hour show about this technology. It is so cool. Of course, it's not the only way to deploy virtualized broadcast infrastructure. You can put it at AWS. Folks at Telos can help you do that. You can put it on your own hardware that you provide, but a great way to do it is with the virtual rack from Broadcast Bionics. Check it out. Thanks a lot to Broadcast Bionics at bionic.co.uk for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. We really appreciate you. All right. We're here with Rolf Taylor. I'm Kirk Harnack. Chris Tarr is feeling a little bit under the weather. Hopefully he'll be back with us next year. Rolf, let's see. I got a whole list here of things we're gonna chat about, and I'm not, I don't really want to point out bad design. Maybe you have an example of bad design. I'd like to spend just a second and tell you some of the companies that I think do generally very good jobs in design. Of course, Telos Alliance. I really appreciate the way things are designed, and they're generally pretty helpful. I think that you were talking about support earlier. I've gotten great support from Comrex and from Nautel, and remember Continental Electronics. They made big transmitters, little ones too. Yeah, great. Always had great support from them. What were you going to say to add to this?
Well, Broadcast Bionics is another one. I haven't ever dealt with them, but their design philosophy is that they get it, just like the product we were discussing. And I'm guessing they have good support as well because they have that ability to sit in the customer's seat. Particularly, obviously, they started out with all that stuff for the producers and call screeners and everyone. And so, if you have that perspective, then usually support comes along with that because that's critical to the customer.
I thought I'd add something somewhere on your circle we looked at earlier. When a manufacturer gets some experience with the product in the field and gets an idea about what are customers calling about over and over again, which kind of tells you what did we miss in maybe telling them about, what is maybe too complicated to tell them about, or what is something that developed in later on in a new version of software or firmware. And this is something that Telos Alliance has done, and I have found it to be so helpful. Not really updating the manual, although if there's a big change, yes, the manual gets updated. But it is an online support database that, and if you want to see a good example one, go to support.telosalliance.com. You type in a plain language question. For example, if you type in Axia Google Chrome bad web page or something like that, you'll find that along the way, Google Chrome changed the way a prefetch function works in Google Chrome. And it's not very compatible with the way that some Axia products were designed on their web page engine. Well, there's a way to fix that in Google Chrome. You just turn one little thing off. It's hard to find. You got to go down, 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 down several steps. But once you find it, just turn that off and your Google Chrome works perfectly well with Axia products. Now, other browsers don't have this behavior and they work fine anyway. But that's an example of something that you can find online that Telos has put. I think they've got close to 1,000 articles. It's the most common things that people ask. And so you can save yourself a phone call and trouble just by trying to put your question in a plain language form on that website. What do you think about that?
Well, and that needs to be a cyclical thing. So I remember when Telos first came out with FAQs. So we just made up a bunch of FAQs, and then you have to look and see, well, what else are people asking? And what's confusing about the FAQ? Same thing with the quick start. Maybe you didn't get it right on the first try, so you listen for it. And tweaking the quick start's pretty easy compared to tweaking the whole manual. So a closed loop system is very important for that. Same thing if customer mentions, "Oh, I had trouble getting through today." Really? Was it rang and no one answered, or did you get a busy signal? What did you happen? Tell us. We can learn from you.
Yeah. Good point. But by the way, I want to point out that a lot of times a manufacturer, if they list FAQs on their website, they're actually sales FAQs. Is this audio processor a good choice for a college station? Why, glad you asked. Of course it is. It's a great choice. In other words, FAQs can be used for marketing purposes. And when I mentioned that website, support.telosalliance.com, that's not really FAQs. It's really, support style articles that you can find by typing a plain language question. And I'm not saying Telos is exclusive to that kind of solution. I'm just saying it's a great idea and it works well, and they update it on a real regular basis.
Well, it replaces the old application notes, for instance, which typically you would have a whole library of those. whereas this is combines that, and it might even have some sales FAQs as well, as long as it's clear when you look at the list of them. Oh well, I don't want that one. I want this one, and that's actually on the grievance. A little early grievance is I go to websites where I search the FAQ, I click on one, and then I say, okay, I want to read the next one in that list, and I hit the back button, or maybe it's got a button of its own, and then it starts out on page one of the list, and I have to start all over, or I have to actually do the search again. It's like, how could you let your customers down? I mean, you're basically pricking them with a pin every time they go to your FAQ site when you do that. It's just
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. Some of the user interface ideas that you talk about here, can you talk a blind user through basic functions? Tell me about how that could work.
Well, with the original Zephyr and with the Zephyr Extreme, you could hit, I think, help a couple times, and that gets you back to the base level. And then you could hit the utility button 5 times, and that got you to your SPIDs, you may remember.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then you hit it one more time, and then that was your directory numbers, which on the old Zephyr you didn't use. And then you hit it one more time. Now, if you need to set the national ISDN, well, we'd have to do a cold boot and make sure it was at the original factory setting. But then you could say no, hit no 5 times, or whatever it would be. I mean, in that case, you'd have to be sitting in front of a unit to walk someone through it. But Norm, I think his name is Norm. It's not Norm Avery, but there's a blind NPR engineer, and there was at least one other blind client. One of them I dealt with directly, and one of which I was coaching someone to help them. And again, on the Zephyr Extreme, was sort of nicer because you had less stuff crammed in each menu, but you had the 4 different menus with the 4 different buttons. So go to the second button from the left under the screen and hit that twice, and then hit the down arrow twice. And so there's where you don't want it to remember where the cursor was. You want it to start at the top of each menu each time, because that way you whether it's a blind person or whether it's just efficiently me telling you where to go, to say, well, what's in that directory number field? Oh, erase that. That's wrong. So it makes an interesting exercise, and it can actually be practical. Now, if you take something with the jog wheel interface, I really don't think you're going to be able to do that. Maybe you could, but it's a lot more work.
You don't know what's highlighted. Whereas if you have up-down buttons and you can hit a button, like you said, multiple times to get home, then at both ends, whether you're blind or sighted, you're both on the same, literally on the same page. What about the concept of multiple ways to do the same thing? Talk to me about that as a design concept.
Well, I'll have to tell you how it originated, and hopefully I don't go on too long. But the original Black Zephyr was quite easy to use, although obviously the ISDN was the hard part, but the unit itself was easy to use, and had sort of an interesting, I think it was sort of Adtran-like, the user interface on that. I don't know whether that was origins of it because it was already there when I got there, but and then the Zephyr Express used the jog wheel, and there were also very little similarity. I always said the Zephyr Express could have been designed by a different company, and just put the Zephyr name on it. Then I was involved in the product management of Zephyr Extreme, and I basically laid out every word on every menu, and then the beautiful implementation of it was Jason, not me, but exactly what each item was and what the selections for each item was mine. And if there was too many characters or something, then we'd go back and forth and discuss it and figure out. But so I wasn't a big fan of the Express, but I did realize that there were probably people that used Express and never used the Black Zephyr, vice versa. So there were a number of things. The way you dialed, you could hit the dial, enter a number, and hit dial. That was the black Zephyr way. You could hit dial, enter the number, or select the number, then enter the number, and then scroll to dial and connect. That was the Zephyr Express way. Well, presumably, if you picked the thing up for the first time, you'd never used either kind, you would find whichever one was intuitive to you. And there's a huge variation in how people think. So one of them might be intuitive to you, and another one might be intuitive to someone else. And one of them is going to be you could be biased towards because you've used the Black Zephyr or the Express. So that got me thinking, well, then there's no reason why you couldn't do that in general, just based on the fact that people don't all think alike. And so they may eventually read the manual and say, oh, there was a simpler way to do this. Isn't that cool? But in the meanwhile, they're able to use the device.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Let's see. The last thing I want to ask you about before we break again is your notion about keeping the UI simple enough by hiding things that people almost never need. And of course, it makes perfect sense. Boy, there are some products I can think of, I'm not going to name any names, that everything's right there in front of you, or the things, I don't know. I don't want to name any names, but man, I've been so fooled by some products, and I had to have somebody else show me, well, you open this and open this and open this, and that tick box right there. Well, gee, everybody wants that on. Why isn't it on by default? What are your thoughts about UI design for the 90%?
Well, first of all, selecting defaults is not anywhere in my notes on this, but that's real important. And it's not necessarily easy. You've got a couple beta testers, but they may not use the defaults that you would use. They're typically power users. And you've got the opinions of the designers, but the right defaults is real critical. Well, with some of the Telos gear, we literally hit it by the only way you could get to it was you had to go in through the back door and use the web interface, which at the time was not the primary interface people used. And so it would only be available there. It wouldn't be available to the sort of, more putsy kind of non-tech user. Deciding what to hide and how to hide it is not necessarily easy. We've all seen the evolution of commercial software where they sort of, when you had submenus of submenus of submenus from drop-down menus, all of a sudden that started getting pretty tricky. My thought would be you still might want to include them in the drop-down menus because you can go down there and look at them one at a time and see everything in the whole system theoretically. As long as there's not submenus, then it's you lose that. But the menu bar up at the top ought to tell you the ability to open up one of those pop-up control panel things, which is how Software General has handled that. Is if you don't need the page layout little pop-up, you just don't open it, and so you don't even know what it is. You open it up and say, "Whoops!" You can hit the X button, close it down. That seems to be a fairly good approach. But then even within that pop-out, is it how confusing is it? Obviously, many aspects of user interface, but again, if you're not doing page layout, if you're just doing word processing, you don't want to have all that stuff on the screen. On the other hand, there's basic functionality in a lot of things today where they have so-called drawing ability, and they don't have the ability to create a line. They have free-form drawing only. What is it? Snip and sketch. I had always ignored it, and I used the old thing. And then I was like, you know what? I need to snip this and then sketch on it. And I opened it up, and I had to create this ridiculous, ugly, hand-drawn thing because it didn't have circles. Actually, I gave up, and I ended up exporting it into something else, and then I had nice circles, because I was sending it to a vendor. I didn't want to look like an idiot.
We're talking to Rolf Taylor. We're after this break, we're going to get to our Festivus section of the show. So, Rolf, get ready for that. Grievances.
Do we want to just really quickly go through the bullet points on the circle of success there? Just see if we missed anything. We've covered a lot of them.
Yeah, let's do that after let's do that right after this break, because I got to stay on track with those. Otherwise, we'll have 5 minutes of commercials at the end of the show. Hey, our show this week in Radio Tech, we got to pay for this somehow, and so we have sponsors, and I'm so grateful for the sponsors, and please, you be too. Okay, so patronize them when you get a chance, and one of those sponsors is Angry Audio. Now, this is Mike Dosh's company. Mike has an amazing career in the broadcast industry and started out in the music industry before that. He's got great design etiquette and ideas. One of those design things is a product that I just used recently building a studio in Oxford, Mississippi, and that's the Guest Gizmo. And what I like about the Guest Gizmo, it's got a couple of smart things that it's smarter than you think, okay? Because it's got some logic in there that's pretty cool. But the fact that you can drill a round hole and plop a square device in there is just amazing. The bezel at the top of it covers the round hole, so you don't see the round hole. You don't get gaps around the thing that you can see, and so you drill a 2 3/4 inch round hole, easy peasy to do. Easier if you have a sharp round hole saw. But and I did bought a brand new one for a few dollars down at the hardware store and drilled carefully, picked my places where these were going to go, drilled that round hole and dropped this sucker right in. And it looks so professional. He even includes, Mike Dosh includes some screws that match, some nice dark black screws that match the motif of the Guest Gizmo. And so it looks so professionally installed, even though I did it. How about that? Left and right audio inputs. It has an insert point input. It has a input for the power, 16 volts AC. Of course, it comes with a little wall wart to plug in. And there's a logic connector on there, too. And you can read in the manual about the different things that it'll do, or you can read on the website about the different things that it will do. Really uses premium components, as is pointed out on the website. And the audio that you get into the headphones, just amazing. Really wonderful. You want it loud? You got it loud. And it's a nice smooth turn of the volume pot. And if you want to, mute your microphone, no problem. You can hook it up to do that, like a cough switch. You can also hook it up to turn things on and off. The Guest Gizmo is one of many, many, many products that Angry Audio makes. And if you go, see the little pricing icon there? Most every web page on the Angry Audio website, angryaudio.com, click on that pricing and you can see for yourself what the retail pricing is. Your dealer may be able to offer you a discount, but they got a new price list for 2024. The Rave console still chimes in under $2,000, so check that out. Just so many things to help you build really high quality studios for broadcast, for podcasting. You're just going to love the stuff they have at Angry Audio at angryaudio.com. Thanks so much, Mike Dosh and Angry Audio, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Oh, and all the Studio Hub stuff too. Remember that? Remember Studio Hub? Yeah, we still got it. They bought the whole company at Angry Audio, and almost everything is still there. So check it out, and well made too. Our show is also brought to you by Max Connect. That's Josh Bone's company. Thank you, Josh Bone. I mean, seriously, thank you for being part of the broadcast industry and supplying some things that we need. One of those things is a new device called the U192. This is from Max Connect, and what it is, it's a USB connected sound card. There are more and more FM audio processing products now that are available as software, and some of them run under Windows. I'm not sure what all of them run under. I've personally installed the Omnia SST and the Omnia 9S software in a Windows environment. And these are extraordinarily reliable. The way they sit in and work with Windows, I've not had any problems with either of these products. And then there's also products like Stereo Tool. And this Max Connect U192 is designed for Stereo Tool's audio processing and for Omnia SST, for Omnia 9S. This gives you a local, in fact, maybe a Suncast can scroll down there. We can see the back of this thing. If there's a picture available, I'm not sure where it is. Oh, there it is, right there. It can give you the composite output, the composite multiplex output to go into your FM exciter. So if your audio processing computer that's running your audio processor and your transmitter are co-located, as many, many times they are, well, There you go. This is your reliable audio interface between the two. There are some other sound cards on the market that people have used in order to make this work, and I got to tell you, for the most part, they're pretty disappointing. A lot of them have some DC offset. They have a capacitor in line with the output that stop the DC offset, but then you don't get the good proper square wave bass response. You get some tilt in there, and then you've got some that don't do very well at 192 kilohertz sampling. This box, the U192, was designed to do exactly this task for broadcasters. So please check it out. It's a great way to get you some audio processing on your FM station, and I think it's so cool. In fact, I'll be using one of these at a new installation that I'll be doing. I'll be using probably Omnia SST or maybe Omnia 9S, and using this as the USB output to feed the transmitter. Check it out. Thanks a lot, Max Connect, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, a few remaining minutes with Rolf Taylor. You may know him or remember him from Telos Support. If you are involved with a PEP station, that is a what does PEP stand for, Rolf?
Primary entry point.
Thank you. Should know that. Primary entry point, because our one of my stations, WVUV in American Samoa, is one. All right, Rolf, let's hit some of these bullet points quickly that you wanted to go over.
So we covered hardware. I mentioned product management a couple times. That is, you have someone that's dedicated to represent the customer on the design team, and you have to give them enough power that they can override angry engineers and say, sorry, you're going to have to redo that. You should check with me first.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get typically also involved very closely with marketing, so the marketing understands what features are. It's a two-way street. What features are required, but also what features are good to sell and that actually help the customer. And as I say there, it makes a difference between a product that works and a product that works well. And hopefully is loved. We already talked, I think, pretty much all about user interface. The balance of feature creep versus confusion is always a tricky one, but you need to give your time and you need to include a product manager on that. The 90% rule, that's actually something Mike Dosh told me. It's not hard and fast, but it's a good thing to think about. If your product can cover 90% of what 90% of users, that other 10%, maybe you don't want to complicate it and raise the price potentially just for that 10%. Now, sometimes, some tiny little company starts out and they do that 10% and eventually grow up and they become 90%. So, it's not without risk, but it's worth considering. Next page. Perfect. Online, I mean, not on the web, but built into the unit is a really nice feature. Again, that's where you're going to have to iteratively go through and find out if it's really doing what you wanted it to, just like your FAQs and your quick start. The documentation, ideally, it's got some tutorial information, and it certainly shouldn't just be pictures of all the menus. Obviously, a lot of documentation, that's all it is. Well, what do these selections mean?
Ralph,
recommended use cases.
Ralph, I want to agree with you so much. So many manuals just tell you what each button does or what each field does and doesn't tell you how to get done a task that I swear I think probably 80-90% of the users want to do with your product, and yet you don't tell me how to do that. You just tell me what each button does. Well, a blind monkey can just about tell you what each button does, and that's not what I need to know.
And the names of functions vary depending on where in the world you're from and what part of the country you're from and what company you're from. So again, if it says mix minus, well, that might not necessarily mean something to someone in Europe.
Yeah,
true. The recommended use cases, I remember, I'm sure you remember stumbling across them when you did drop the manual on the floor, Kirk. I put in a whole thing, if you've got 3 sites with the extreme, here's your options, do you want good quality in this direction or this direction? If you're talking to an older layer 2 codec, well, here's your options. If you've got 1 B channel or 2 B channels. And again, having that there somewhere is helps the customer help themselves. It also helps your support people. You get a new support person, they flip through the manual, they remember that's there, they open it up, and they basically read it to the customer over the phone. FAQs we pretty well covered, but make them painless. Like I said, you don't want to have to research after every time you click on it. I've run across that with too many FAQs. Thank you very much. Support options, there's a lot of different ways to do support. Just make sure, A, you're not hiding from your customers. Make sure you have at least a tier 2 people that are actually product specialists that really know a couple of the products. So they'll know, oh yeah, in version 1.3.2, there's this bug, and that's what version you're running, things like that.
Yeah.
Make sure if you've got an option and it's worthless, if it's some bot that doesn't actually provide useful information, as opposed to a bot that does a search on that thing you were describing at Telos, well, that's sure. If the bot pulls it up for you, great, but it's got to pull up something useful. And then, if you're going to have some maid answer the phone at midnight, well, maybe you shouldn't be open at midnight. Don't waste your customers' time with nonsense. Better to reduce the number of options and do them well. Again, escalation, as I said earlier, you really got to think that through. Yes, there's people that are going to get escalated, and you can turn that right around. I can remember being called by Neil Glassman, who was running support at the time, together with marketing, which they really do go hand in hand, and saying, this is Rolf Taylor. He knows more about that subject than anyone in the company. He'll take care of you. And so he escalated it right back to support, and he didn't have to take time on it, but he gave me confidence. He gave the customer confidence, and we got through it. Next page. Word of mouth, that's what it's all about. A couple of these little prickly, annoying things, and all of a sudden it becomes an adequate product rather than a great product. And I don't know how many times myself I've had a problem with a company, and I've worked with them, and they did what was right, and I just got some free jerky because they sent me the wrong jerky. It was pepper rather than regular, and they sent me two bags asked without any questions at all. So now I'm even a bigger fan of that jerky, Wild Bill's jerky, great stuff. Keep that in mind. You can't get better loyalty than when you solve those problems in the right way. Even though it started out as a problem. Is your marketing part of your support? Is your support part of your marketing? Are they the same thing? Probably not. But if you run them together, Kirk, Neil was a genius, and I don't know whether he was asked to take charge of support or how that happened, but he treated support as part of marketing. Good support sells the product. That's what marketing is, right? And then you can tell people you got great support, and they ask around, word of mouth. It's there. We already talked about pre-sale support. Depending on the product, can be critical for like a console or complicated things with checklists and stuff. Next page. Okay, here we are. Happy Festivus.
Oh, well, we might have a grievance or two to get to, but we got to take one more quick break. I'm talking to the affable, fun, and highly intelligent Rolf Taylor. You might know him from support at Telos Alliance. That's where I first met Rolf. We probably talked on the phone a few times before I worked there, and then we got to be colleagues at Telos Alliance for a while. So we'll be right back after this quick message from our friends at VoxPro.
Hey, what's happening? St. John here, coming to you from Command Central, and wanted to tell you about the absolute best partner you can have in radio. I'm talking about Boom! Wheatstone's Vox Pro. Lots of different audio software out there. Why Vox Pro? It's the only software designed to do what we needed to do, which is record, edit, playback in real time. When I say lightning fast, I'm going to show you how fast you can edit stuff up in Vox Pro right now. So literally 3 clicks on the controller. Mark left, mark right. Everything that gets marked, you hit delete, it goes away. It's literally that fast. So we're going to take this part right here. Boom. From caller 9 to him saying, I'm ready.
5, ready for that secret sound.
Boom. All of that stuff, hit delete, it goes away. Here's your edit.
You are tackling secret sound caller 9.
I'm ready, St. John.
So one of the best features of version 7, this is awesome. It's effects macros, and you can literally put a chain of effects together so that instead of having to normalize a phone bit and then use noise reduction on it and EQ it and all that, you can literally build a chain. One button, this one's called call right here. I just click that. All of those processes happen instantaneously. Final thing that I love about Vox Pro, and there's so much more to get into, but one of my favorite things, you can load it on a laptop. I've literally done my show from a hotel room in Armenia to the conference room at, this was fun, jury duty. Great thing, no one could tell the difference. Vox Pro makes it totally easy. Telling you, if you're looking for the best on-air partner, call my friends at Wheatstone, ask them about Vox Pro, and you'll be glad you did.
And actually, you're going to want to call Broadcasters General Store because they can actually sell you Vox Pro and give you a proper discount. So check it out from Broadcasters General Store. BGS.cc is their website, or you can give them a call at 352-622-7700. They are set up for phone calls. They love to talk to you on the phone, and every one of the people who works there has just a terrific computer look into availability, scheduling, of pricing, of course, and delivery. So check this out. Broadcasters General Store. Love you guys. Have a great 2024, and we're planning on doing a lot of business with you in next year as well as we did this year. All right, thanks a lot, Vox Pro and BGS. All right, we're here with just a couple more minutes with Rolf Taylor. Rolf, I don't know, we got anything that qualifies for Festivus? We got any grievances to air? What do you think?
Well, I've categorized them into groups.
Okay,
and when
good.
you and I talked about earlier, when you go to a website, you go to purchase something, and I don't believe in saving my credit cards. I order them, I enter them in every time. And sometimes you start typing and you get to the 4th digit and it jumps over and you continue doing it. And I don't have to worry about whether I can put a dash or not. There's other ones that let you put dashes in, and then you have to re-enter it because it won't take dashes or spaces. I don't have an American Express card. I guess they're just a little different, but I assume with the websites that seem to do it right, they figured out how to do that as well. So there's a little pain point for every single time someone makes a purchase and enters a credit card that a website could easily fix. I mean, what's maybe an hour or two for a coder to figure it out, and then they got to debug it, which is might take a couple days. But how complicated is that? Just think about the customer, right?
Along with the number entry and what you just talked about, I get annoyed with the fact that the credit card has the expiration date in numbers like 07/24, and so often the drop down asks you what month. So if it's 09/25, which one of my cards is, and the drop down just says, Jan, Feb, Mar, April. I got to 09. Let's see.
You have to use that gray matter wetware to do the conversion. Yeah. It's not very efficient.
How hard would it be? How hard would it be for them to specify the expiration month the same way it is on your credit card? How difficult would that be? Oh my gosh. Not at all. Go ahead.
If you're going to ask for the zip code, which you will, then why do I need to enter a city?
Yeah.
The zip code's going to be whatever city the post office cares about, so it might actually be better. Now,
exactly.
The people that do it right, I don't know if actually look up your address through the U.S. Post Office and make you confirm it, which is an extra step, but it makes sure you get your stuff on time. But at the very least, to have a zip code lookup so I don't have to enter the city. As I was talking about earlier, when I get search results and I click on one, and then I want to go back to it. You're going to force me to have to right click on it and open it in another tab, or is it going to just open another tab, or do I open it and then when I hit back, it's gone and I got to search again? Well,
Yeah.
again,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
searching for stuff on your site. Don't make it hard. That one of my biggest grievances, search engines. There's virtually no search engines that are well designed. Somewhere in software school, they're teaching people, well, a good search engine gives you lots of results. So you
Well,
search
of course,
something and you get 12 pages of results.
the purpose of the search
I
engine
don't
is
think
not
so.
to help you find something. The purpose of the search engine is to financially benefit those who run the search engine. That's so the goals are the motivations are
Oh,
different.
no. I'm talking about when I go to acehardware.com and I put in
Okay. Oh,
hex
yeah.
screws.
Gotcha.
And it gives me
All right.
anything that has hex and anything that has screws. So it's 120 different
Oh,
pages
yeah.
of stuff
Yeah.
rather than doing a Boolean. Oh, that's too complicated for modern programmers.
Yes. I hear you. All right. What else, real
Let's bring
quick?
us back to the page before that last one. I think we skipped ahead. If we could, I don't have my notes very well organized here.
Oh, yeah. Passwords.
And why no guest checkout?
Oh, yeah. That'd be nice.
Because I mean, yes, Amazon pioneered the whole thing and patented to make it easy to buy stuff online. Well, guess what? Hackers figured out. They're stealing everything. They get into the DoD computers. I don't want my password anywhere. The bank's got to have it, but so don't make me have to go back and delete it. Just give me a guest checkout. If people want to risk their security, fine, give them the option. But give me a guest checkout. And then passwords. Why do I need a super secure password to pay my electric bill? What, is someone going to go in there and pay it for me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I
great.
know.
I mean, there's got to be a password, of course, but it shouldn't have to require 16 characters and all this nonsense if it's to pay a utility bill. Particularly since I don't think they allow you to turn off your service on the web page. They shouldn't, and then you're keeping 5 of my passwords on your server? Really?
Or hashes of them. Maybe hashes of them.
Well, exactly. But once someone breaks the hash, then they get all of them.
Well, that's true.
And that was
That's
a really
true.
good article I read just recently by on Barry's website. There were 2 of them, one written by Barry and one written by Cowboy, and explained how they break the hash. All it takes is one person to put in password as the password. They break the hash on that, and then they've got the formula for the hash. They can break all the other passwords.
Rolf, my biggest Festivus complaint is we're out of time. That's my grievance. We're out of time. We're out of time. We're going to have to go right now. So I don't know. Maybe we'll finish the list next year. We ought to have you back next year, same time, same bat channel. Maybe Chris Tarr will feel better and he'll join us too.
Yeah, that
Rolf,
would be nice.
Rolf, if you have a quick tip, now's the time. But otherwise, we got to go in 60 seconds. You've been full of tips. So anything else?
Take your own experience, and every time something's like, say, does that apply to the products I design and sell?
Yeah, that's a good point. Do I build in
empathy? It's applied empathy.
Yeah, good point. Applied empathy. Rolf Taylor, if people have a PEP station, they may be dealing with you. Thank you for dealing with WSM down the road and WVUV in American Samoa, keeping the people of Samoa and Nashville informed. Really appreciate your efforts and those of your colleagues too. So,
and keep an eye on WSM. I think they're in the midst of the upgrade process. I think to the new PEP. If it hasn't started, it's on the list. I know.
If I can ever get Jason Cooper to be on the show, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. We got to go. And this is our last show of 2023. It's been a wonderful year. I appreciate each and every one of you watching, listening, and sharing with your friends. Be sure you like and subscribe. You've heard that before. We are on YouTube, so you can like and subscribe on YouTube and get yourself notified when there's a new episode out. We do the show live, typically on Thursday afternoons, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we top and tail the show. If we make a big mistake, Suncast fixes that up, and we publish the show more or less permanently the next day, typically on the Friday. So you can go back and watch something, and it should be good. Thanks so much for joining us all this year in 2023. We will see you next year. Our first show next year is from an AM radio station that's doing a lot of good. You're going to like it. We're going to be there with Beth Mann in Elkton, Kentucky next week on Thursday. Thanks again, Rolf Taylor. Thanks to Suncast for producing today's show. We appreciate you very much. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.